It's truly mind-boggling how the ancient world continues to throw these curveballs our way. We're talking structures that just defy our understanding of engineering, artifacts with no clear purpose, entire societies that seemingly vanished into thin air.
Yeah.
What is it about these enduring puzzles that still captivates us so much? That's really the question we're diving headfirst into today, all thanks to, well, a really fascinating exploration of history's greatest unsolved mysteries.
Exactly. And we've gathered a really compelling array of these ancient enigmas from all across the globe. You know, silent tombs, whispered lost cities, inexplicable objects, and disappearances that continue to baffle researchers.
Right.
Our aim isn't just to describe these mysteries, but to really dig into what they tell us about the past and maybe even ourselves.
Okay, let's unpack this. For you, our listener, our mission is pretty simple.
Yeah.
We want to provide a kind of shortcut to understanding these incredible historical puzzles.
Yeah, get straight to the heart of it.
Exactly. We're going to extract the most intriguing aspects, connect some dots, and hopefully leave you with a real sense of the profound questions these ancient mysteries pose. So, where should our exploration begin? How about with a tomb? One that stood defiant for millennia.
An excellent starting point. Let's journey to China and consider the extraordinary tomb of Qin Shi Huang. He was the first emperor of a unified China, of course. And this isn't just a burial site. It's this colossal mausoleum stretching across, 56 square kilometers?
56, wow.
Imagine, construction began when he was just 13 years old, and it involved an estimated 700,000 laborers. Just staggering numbers.
And while the Terracotta Army, which is just, absolutely breathtaking as a discovery, while that's been unearthed, the central chamber, the place where the emperor himself is believed to lie, that remains untouched.
Completely sealed.
It's as if we've only glimpsed the prologue to some much larger historical epic,
Right. And the Han Dynasty historian Sima Qian, writing about a century later, he described this incredible underground palace. He talked about flowing rivers of mercury, a ceiling studded with pearls mimicking the stars, countless treasures.
And remarkably, modern surveys, they've actually detected unusually high levels of mercury in the soil around the burial mound.
Lending real weight to those ancient accounts.
Which just raises the big question, with all our advanced technology, why haven't we actually ventured into this potential treasure trove of history?
Well, there are some very good reasons. The excavation of the Terracotta Army itself, it kind of offers a cautionary tale.
Right. The colors.
Exactly. The vibrant colors on those statues began to fade almost immediately upon exposure to air. So imagine the potential for irreversible damage to really delicate materials within the main tomb, things like silks, ancient texts, if our preservation techniques aren't absolutely perfect.
That's a huge risk.
It is. And beyond the artifacts themselves, those high mercury levels you mentioned, they pose a serious environmental and health risk. A large-scale excavation could present just massive challenges in terms of containment and safety.
And, of course, there's the cultural aspect, too. Let's not forget the profound cultural and spiritual significance of imperial tombs in China.
Absolutely. They're considered sacred ground. Disturbing them would be seen as a deep act of disrespect towards ancestors and national heritage.
Especially for Qin Shi Huang, the unifier of China. He holds immense symbolic importance. It creates a real tension, doesn't it? Our thirst for knowledge versus the need for preservation and, cultural respect.
Precisely. And this undisturbed burial mound, it stands as a powerful symbol of that very tension, a silent testament to the mysteries the past continues to hold and the complex decisions we face in, engaging with it.
Okay, so from a vast, unexcavated tomb, let's turn to a lost resting place altogether. The burial site of Genghis Khan. Unlike Qin Shi Huang, we don't even have a clear location for the man who forged the largest contiguous empire in history. His tomb has just vanished without a trace.
The contrast is really striking, isn't it? While so many powerful leaders left behind these monumental tombs, Genghis Khan's final resting place is just shrouded in absolute secrecy, and apparently by his own decree.
The legends surrounding his burial are, they're really something else. The secret history of the Mongols only mentions the year he died. Even Marco Polo, writing later, claimed the Mongols themselves didn't know the location.
It's almost as if they intentionally erased him from the physical landscape after his death.
The lengths they supposedly went to ensure this secrecy, according to the folklore, are just extraordinary.
Oh, they really are. Tales abound of the entire escort party being killed, followed by the execution of the 2,000 funeral attendees.
2000.
And then even the individuals who carried out that grim task were also eliminated. Just layers of secrecy enforced by death.
And the stories get even wilder. They say 1,000 horses were driven over the burial site to obliterate any signs.
Trampling it flat.
Rivers were diverted, entire forests planted as camouflage. I mean, it's hard to even imagine the scale of an undertaking like that.
There's even a rather poignant story of a young camel buried with him. Apparently, its mother would return to weep at the grave for years, supposedly guiding his descendants back to the spot.
Wow.
Yet, despite all these legends, no definitive record, no map, no document revealing the tomb's location has ever surfaced.
The prevailing theory, though, it does place it somewhere near Burkhan Khaldun, right? The sacred mountain of his birth.
That's the leading candidate, yes. Archaeologists have used everything: drones, satellite imagery, even a crowdsourcing project to analyze potential sites.
But any attempts at actually excavating have been met with resistance.
Significant resistance from local communities who revere the area as holy. It's sacred land.
So again, we see this intersection of archaeological pursuit and cultural preservation.
Exactly. The potential historical significance of what might be in that tomb, the accumulated wealth, the artifacts from a vast empire, it's immense. But for the Mongolian people, honoring their national heroes' wishes and protecting sacred land seems to be the priority.
Plus, the Khenti region itself is pretty remote and inaccessible, I imagine.
Very much so. All these factors combine to keep the tomb, if it is indeed there, beyond our reach for now.
Okay, let's shift gears pretty dramatically now and talk about something, well, potentially of a very different scale entirely. In 1890, in Castelnau, France, some truly enormous bone fragments were discovered.
Ah, the giant of Castelnau, yes.
Part of a femur, a section of tibia, what was believed to be an arm bone.
And what's immediately striking is the reported size. These fragments were apparently roughly twice the size of comparable bones from modern humans.
Twice the size.
Based on these measurements, the anthropologist Georges Vacher de la Puge, he estimated the individual would have stood well over 11 feet tall.
11 feet.
And he was adamant, apparently, that these were human remains, not animal, human.
So these bones were sent off to the University of Montpellier for analysis.
Correct. And experts there in zoology, paleontology, anatomy, they reportedly agreed. They belonged to a very tall race, though they did acknowledge the possibility of, some form of pathological gigantism.
Okay, but then, intriguingly, a few years later, more reports surfaced of even bigger skulls and bones found nearby.
Yes, supposedly belonging to individuals somewhere between 10 and 15 feet tall, which is just incredible if true.
But what happened to those later finds? That's the big question.
Exactly. They were reportedly sent to the French Academy of Sciences, but then seemed to have just vanished. Poof. Gone without a trace. So no modern scientific reevaluation is possible for those later finds.
And adding another layer to this whole puzzle is a more recent theory from 2022.
Right, by anthropologist Catherine Hecken. She suggests that the original 1890 fragments might have been misidentified. Maybe they were remains of giant bears, Ursus spelaeus perhaps, which once roamed Europe.
Okay, that sounds plausible. Comparative anatomy wasn't as advanced back then.
Precisely. Misidentification is definitely possible. But if they were bear bones, why did the Montpellier experts at the time so confidently identify them as human? That's a bit odd.
And why hasn't there been any subsequent modern study of the original 1890 fragments? They haven't vanished, has they?
That's unclear. It's a lingering point of uncertainty. This whole discovery, whether it's genuine giant human remains or misidentified animal bones, it certainly resonates with all those myths and legends of giants you find in cultures worldwide, right?
Oh yeah, the Cyclops, the Nephilim, even local folklore in Castelnau itself.
And while we always need to be cautious about archaeological hoaxes, the Cardiff giant comes to mind.
Right.
The initial expert verification of the Castelnau bones makes a simple hoax seem, less likely in this particular case.
So ultimately, the disappearance of some of the bones, the uncertainty around the originals, it leaves us with this enduring, unanswered question about the true origin of the giant of Castelnau.
Moving from possible giants to a truly gigantic human creation that also remains deeply mysterious. Let's explore the Longyu Caves in China, an accidental discovery back in 1992.
Oh, this is a fascinating story. A local farmer, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to expand a pond, so he drained it and just stumbled upon this enormous underground cavern.
That's right. And the walls were perfectly flat, patterned. He apparently said it looked like it had been made with modern tools.
And that first cave wasn't the end of it.
Not at all. That initial discovery led to finding an entire network, over 20 interconnected caves, each soaring over 30 meters in height.
30 meters, that's huge.
It is. And what makes Longyu so perplexing is the sheer precision of the engineering. The walls are just uniformly smooth, the finish is flawless, the ceilings are perfectly domed, supported by these precisely placed pillars.
And those carvings.
Everywhere. Every single surface is covered in these consistent, parallel sort of wave-like carvings. The uniformity is astonishing.
But here's where the mystery really deepens. Despite the immense scale, the complexity, no human remains, no artifacts whatsoever have ever been found inside.
Nothing, absolutely nothing to indicate who built them or what their purpose might have been. It's baffling.
And the age. They think they're pretty old.
Based on geological analysis, erosion patterns, archaeologists estimate they could be over 2,000 years old, potentially dating back to the Qin or early Han dynasty.
Yet, incredibly, there's absolutely no mention of the Longyu caves in any known ancient Chinese chronicles. None.
How could such a massive undertaking just vanish completely from the historical record? That's the question.
So what are the theories? People must have ideas.
Oh, numerous theories have been proposed. Maybe ancient granaries, wartime shelters, forgotten royal tombs, maybe secret ceremonial centers.
But none of those really explain the carvings, right?
Yeah.
That uniformity.
Not fully. That striking uniformity found in every single cave suggests a highly organized, highly skilled workforce, with techniques that seem frankly beyond what we generally know of that period. It's like finding, I don't know, a skyscraper blueprint in the middle of the Bronze Age.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
The implications are pretty significant. These caves, just lying silently beneath ordinary farmland, they stand as this powerful reminder of the ingenuity and the many still unwritten chapters of human history. Until more evidence comes to light, the Longyu caves remain a stark testament to the enduring mysteries of the past.
Speaking of massive stone structures that leave us scratching our heads, let's journey to Baalbek in Lebanon, home to some of the most, bewildering megaliths on Earth.
Baalbek, yes! You arrive at this ancient site, you see the Roman ruins, which are impressive in themselves.
Definitely.
But then you encounter the foundations of the Temple of Jupiter. And it's those foundations, specifically the 3 colossal stones known as the Trilithon, that truly defy easy explanation.
Colossal is the right word. Each of these blocks is nearly 20 meters long, over 4 meters high, and weighs somewhere between 750 and 800 tons.
800 tons. That's roughly the size and weight of a fully loaded Boeing 777 airliner. Just try to picture moving one of those.
And these enormous stones, they form the foundation of a Roman temple built in the 1st century AD. But here's the real head-scratcher. The sheer size and weight of these blocks far, far exceed the known capabilities of Roman engineering.
Absolutely. We have no record of any Roman lifting devices, no construction techniques that could have moved and placed stones of that magnitude. It's a major anomaly.
And what makes it even more intriguing is that in a nearby ancient quarry, they found even larger blocks.
That's right. There's the famous stone of the pregnant woman, weighing around 1,000 tons. Another one nearby is estimated at 1,242 tons. And then the truly gargantuan one, unearthed just in 2014, estimated to weigh a staggering 1,650 tons.
1,600 tons. And these are still in the quarry.
Still there, as if they were abandoned mid-process. It makes you wonder about the original intent. Were they destined for an even more monumental project that never happened?
So the conventional explanation that the Romans used wooden rollers and earthen ramps to move the Trilithon, that doesn't really hold up.
It seems highly improbable for stones of that size. Roman cranes, at their best, could maybe lift 60 to 100 tons, maybe. We're talking an order of magnitude difference here. It simply doesn't add up.
Which has led many researchers to speculate.
Yeah.
What if? That the foundation might actually predate the Romans.
Exactly. That perhaps the Romans built their temple on top of a much older megalithic platform constructed by a civilization with, perhaps more advanced or at least different technological capabilities.
And there are similarities mentioned with other sites, like Ayugat.
Sacsayhuaman in Peru, the precision joints in some Egyptian structures. There are stylistic and technical parallels that are certainly thought-provoking, though proving a direct connection is difficult.
So the enduring mystery of these colossal stones, coupled with the complete silence of ancient records regarding their construction, it just leaves us with these silent, massive blocks, challenging our whole understanding of ancient capabilities and maybe even the timeline of technological development.
Right. Now let's shift our focus a bit, moving from stone to parchment to a different kind of ancient enigma, the Codex Gigas, more famously known, of course, as the Devil's Bible.
Ah, yes, this is one of the most eerie and captivating manuscripts ever created. It's the largest surviving medieval manuscript, right?
Absolutely immense.
Huge, nearly 75 kilograms, almost a meter tall. Imagine the sheer number of animal skins needed just to make the pages. Hundreds, likely.
But its size is only part of the mystique, isn't it? There's that legend.
The legend, yes. That this enormous book was written in a single night by a Benedictine monk. He'd supposedly made a pact with the devil to save himself from being walled up alive.
And as part of this pact, the monk included that massive, iconic portrait of the devil within its pages.
That's the story. A full-page, incredibly striking portrait of Satan. Of course, that's the dramatic legend. What does scholarly research say?
Well, research indicates it was likely completed in the early 13th century, probably at the Pelagius Monastery in Bohemia. But here's what's truly remarkable, and feeds into the legend, perhaps. The astonishing consistency of the handwriting across all 620 pages.
It looks like one person wrote the whole thing.
It appears so, written by a single scribe. A feat that would realistically have taken many, many years, maybe even decades of dedicated work, not one night.
And what's actually in the book, besides the Bible?
Oh, it's a fascinating collection. You find the complete Latin Bible, yes, but also texts on history, medicine, specifically anatomy, magic, astrology. There's a catalog of demons and even spells. A real medieval compendium.
And that illustration of Satan, it's pretty prominent.
Very much so. That full-page illustration is incredibly striking and has undoubtedly fueled the persistent belief that the book carries some kind of dark influence or curse.
And it's had quite a journey over the centuries.
It has. It was seized by the Swedish army during the 30 Years' War and taken to Stockholm, where it remains today in the National Library of Sweden. And yes, there are persistent tales of misfortune befalling those who possess or handle the manuscript over the years.
So what's fascinating here is this intertwining of historical fact, the likely time and place of origin, the single scribe theory, and this incredibly compelling legend.
Exactly. The sheer scale of the undertaking, the seemingly impossible consistency of the script, that powerful, unsettling image of the devil, it all continues to fascinate scholars and those drawn to the mysterious. It leaves us pondering the true story behind this extraordinary and perhaps slightly menacing book.
Okay, moving from a medieval mystery now to something far, far older. Let's delve into Göbekli in Turkey. A discovery that has just fundamentally changed our understanding of the Neolithic period.
Indeed it has. Until its rediscovery in 1994 by the German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, this site just lay silently beneath the surface. What emerged were these astonishing circular structures made of massive limestone pillars.
Massive is right. Some towering up to 6 meters tall, weighing many tons each.
And the age is just staggering. Over 11,000 years old.
11,000.
To put that in perspective, that predates the invention of the wheel, agriculture, even the use of metal. It's significantly older than both the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge, by millennia.
And these pillars aren't just plain stone, are they?
Not at all. What's truly groundbreaking are the intricate carvings found on them. Animals, lions, snakes, foxes, birds, and abstract symbols adorn these T-shaped pillars. It suggests a really complex symbolic system, a sophisticated worldview for these ancient people.
But here's where it gets really revolutionary, right?
Yeah.
It's believed to have been built by hunter-gatherers.
That's the paradigm shift. People we traditionally thought lacked the social organization, the resources, the technological capacity for such monumental constructions. This discovery has completely upended our understanding of the relationship between ritual, belief, and the emergence of settled societies.
So the idea is maybe the need for communal worship or ritual actually drove social complexity before agriculture.
That's the implication, yes. It suggests that perhaps large-scale organized religion came first, and that spurred the innovations that led to settled life and farming, not the other way around.
Wow. And then, even more remarkably, they deliberately buried the entire site.
Around 8000 BC, yes, the entire complex was intentionally backfilled with earth, as if its creators intended to conceal its secrets or perhaps protect it. This act of deliberate burial is precisely what allowed it to survive in such relatively good condition for thousands upon thousands of years.
So the implications of Göbekli Tepe are just profound. Its rediscovery is rewriting the very narrative of human history.
It truly is. It demonstrates that early human societies were far more sophisticated, their motivations far more complex than we previously understood. It forces us to reconsider the very origins of civilization itself.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to a mystery that's fueled speculation and intrigue for decades, often kind of veiled in secrecy. The White Pyramid of China.
Ah, yes. This one definitely has an air of mystery about it.
It feels like something straight out of an adventure movie. In 1945, an American pilot, James Gossman, flying over China, reportedly spotted this colossal white pyramid nestled in a valley.
And then 2 years later, another pilot, Maurice Shahan, corroborated the sighting.
Right, and he even managed to take some blurry photographs, which apparently ignited a real sensation back in the West.
But then access became restricted.
Exactly. As China's borders became more tightly controlled after the revolution, the region where the pyramid was said to be located, the Qinling Shan Mountains near Xi'an, became effectively off-limits to foreign researchers.
And official Chinese accounts often refer to these structures as earthen burial mounds, sort of downplaying or even denying the existence of a large, specifically white pyramid.
Yet, despite those official statements, satellite imagery in recent years has revealed numerous pyramid-like structures in that region. Some of them are truly impressive in size, potentially even larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza.
And local legends persist. Speaking of ancient pyramids that were once covered in a brilliant white substance, perhaps limestone casing stones like in Egypt, or maybe a type of white clay.
So the theories surrounding this white pyramid or these pyramids are pretty wide-ranging.
Oh, definitely. While some archaeologists firmly believe they are indeed imperial burial mounds, similar to Qin Shi Huang's, but perhaps for earlier rulers, others speculate they could be remnants of a lost ancient civilization predating the traditionally accepted timeline of Chinese history.
And of course, there are the more fringe theories.
Extraterrestrial connections, yes. Those always pop up with large, unexplained ancient structures. But what is more intriguing, perhaps, is that some of these pyramid-like structures appear to be aligned with constellations, a feature shared by the pyramids in Egypt and other sites, suggesting sophisticated astronomical knowledge.
But the key challenge remains the lack of independent access for foreign archaeological investigation, right?
That's the main hurdle. The Chinese government has maintained a cautious approach to large-scale excavations in this area, partly due to, again, cultural sensitivities surrounding imperial burials. There's a strong belief in not disturbing the emperor's slumber.
So what's fascinating here is this interplay between these anecdotal pilot accounts, the remote sensing data from satellites, local folklore, and then the official caution.
Exactly. The White Pyramid, whether it's one specific structure or a complex of many, remains this potent symbol of the unknown. It's a challenge to our established historical narratives and a reminder of the potential for truly significant discoveries still hidden beneath the surface of our planet.
Okay, let's travel from potential ancient pyramids to a much more recent, yet still very puzzling discovery. The Black Sarcophagus of Alexandria, unearthed just back in 2018.
Ah, yes. This discovery really captured the public's imagination, didn't it? Found quite by chance at a construction site in Alexandria.
And it wasn't just any old coffin. This was massive black granite sarcophagus.
Huge, nearly 3 meters long, weighing around 30 tons. Just immense.
And what was immediately striking was its plainness.
Exactly. Unlike the elaborately decorated sarcophagi we often associate with Egyptian royalty or nobility, this one was completely unadorned. No hieroglyphs, no inscriptions, just a plain plaster seal holding the lid shut.
There was an alabaster bust found nearby, but its identity was also a mystery.
Correct. And this anonymity, the starkness, really fueled the speculation. Could it have belonged to someone incredibly significant whose identity was perhaps intentionally obscured? Maybe even Alexander the Great, whose tomb has famously never been found?
And of course, whenever you find a sealed ancient tomb,
Whispers of a curse. That always happens. There were even petitions online urging authorities not to open it, fearing unleashing some ancient plague or curse.
So the opening itself was quite an event, watched worldwide.
It really was. But instead of the expected mummified remains and golden treasures, archaeologists were met with, well, first, a truly foul odor, and then this reddish-brown liquid, likely sewage that had seeped in over the centuries. Inside, they found the skeletal remains of not one, but 3 individuals.
3 people in one sarcophagus. And one had sign of violence.
Yes. Intriguingly, one of the skulls showed clear evidence of a fracture, possibly from a sharp implement like an arrow or spear, suggesting a violent death.
And the dating. When were they buried?
Dating of the remains placed them in the early Ptolemaic period, probably around the 4th century BC, a time when Alexandria was a major, bustling metropolis shortly after its founding by Alexander.
So the real head-scratcher was why use such a colossal, presumably very expensive, black granite sarcophagus for 3 seemingly ordinary individuals buried without any accompanying grave goods, ceremony, or inscriptions.
Exactly. That's the core mystery. Were they perhaps members of a forgotten noble family who fell dramatically out of favor, maybe soldiers who died together in battle and were hastily interred? Or even high-ranking officials whose memory was intentionally erased for some political reason?
And the granite itself is significant, had to be brought from far away.
Yes, black granite like that would have had to be transported a considerable distance, likely from Aswan, hundreds of miles up the Nile, a huge expense and effort for seemingly anonymous burials.
So the black sarcophagus really serves as this powerful reminder that history often buries unexpected stories, and the lives of those who might not have left grand monuments or written records behind can still leave these perplexing clues.
Absolutely. And it shows that even in a city as extensively explored as Alexandria, significant secrets can still lie just beneath our feet, waiting to be uncovered. Egypt still holds countless mysteries.
All right, our exploration of the ancient unexplained continues with something different again. A 16th century Ottoman map that continues to challenge our understanding of historical cartography. This is the Piri Reis map.
The Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. This map is truly remarkable.
Why so remarkable?
Well, mainly for its apparent accuracy and level of detail, which seem to exceed the known scientific and geographical knowledge of that specific era. And bear in mind, what we possess today is only a fragment, maybe about 1/3 of the original, larger world map.
And what does this surviving fragment show?
It depicts the western coast of Africa and the eastern coastline of South America with pretty surprising accuracy for 1513. But the most astonishing part, the bit that really fuels debate, is its apparent depiction of Antarctica.
Antarctica. But that wasn't officially discovered by modern explorers for another 3 centuries.
Exactly. And even more perplexing, the map seems to show a part of the Antarctic coastline free of ice, as it might have appeared during a much earlier pre-glacial period, millennia ago.
How did Piri Reis explain this? Did he say where he got his information?
He did. Piri Reis himself noted on the map that he compiled it using over 20 older charts and maps as sources. Some he even attributed perhaps indirectly to Christopher Columbus, whose voyages were recent news then.
Okay, but do those supposed source maps fully explain the Antarctica part? The accuracy there?
Not really. None of the known contemporary maps or Columbus's charts could account for that detailed, seemingly ice-free depiction of an Antarctic coast. That remains the central puzzle.
So what are the theories? How could he have known that?
Well, the theories range pretty widely. Some propose that Piri Reis had access to knowledge from truly ancient source maps, perhaps inherited from long-lost civilizations. You sometimes hear Atlantis mentioned in this context, though that's highly speculative.
Right.
Others suggest it's more a case of clever compilation, maybe some guesswork, perhaps incorporating exaggerated sailors' accounts of silky lands, or even misinterpreting the coastline of South America and extending it southward. The truth remains elusive and, frankly, hotly debated among historians and cartography experts.
So what's truly captivating about the Piri Reis map is how this 500-year-old document just continues to challenge our assumptions about the geographical knowledge and mapping capabilities of the, well, not so ancient world in this case, but certainly pushing the boundaries of what we thought they knew.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other sophisticated understanding of the world might have existed and subsequently been lost to the passage of time? The map, now housed in the Topkapi Palace Museum in Istanbul, remains this tangible enigma.
Okay, let's consider a different kind of historical puzzle now. Not an object, but a people. The abrupt disappearance of the Clovis people from the archaeological record in North America.
The Clovis culture. Yes, their story really begins with the discovery of these very distinctive, beautifully made, fluted spear points near Clovis, New Mexico, back in the 1930s.
And these points date back quite a ways.
They do, approximately 13,000 years ago. They represent a highly skilled and apparently successful hunting culture that spread across North America right at the end of the last ice age.
They were known for this advanced stone tool technology, the Clovis points being the prime example. And they hunted now extinct megafauna, right? Mammoths, Mastodons.
Exactly. They were big game hunters, seemingly very well adapted to that environment. But then, quite suddenly, archaeologically speaking, within a relatively short period, maybe just a few hundred years, the distinctive Clovis culture seems to just vanish entirely from the archaeological record. It's replaced by other subsequent cultures with different toolkits, like the Folsom culture.
Why? What happened to them? Scientists must be actively researching this.
Oh, very actively. There are several prominent theories. One major one points to the dramatic climate change occurring at the end of the Pleistocene, the Younger Dryas cooling event, perhaps. This led to shifts in vegetation and, crucially, the extinction of many of the megafauna they relied upon. Their specialized hunting strategy might have become unsustainable.
Makes sense. Their food source disappeared.
Right. Another compelling hypothesis, though still debated, proposes a large extraterrestrial impact event around that time. Proponents point to evidence like layers of nanodiamonds and other impact markers found at archaeological sites dating precisely to the end of the Clovis period. Such an impact could have caused widespread environmental disruption, fires, and ecological collapse.
Wow, a cosmic catastrophe.
It's a possibility that's gaining some traction. Whatever the specific cause, or perhaps combination of causes, the story of the Clovis people serves as this powerful reminder of the potential fragility of even seemingly successful and well-adapted societies, especially when faced with the Rohan Codex. This is a truly baffling one. This enigmatic book surfaced in Hungary in the early 19th century, part of a donation to the Hungarian Academy of Sciences.
And it's written in what language?
That's the mystery. It contains over 400 pages filled with a completely unique script. Thousands of distinct symbols that bear absolutely no resemblance to any known language or ancient writing system, not Hungarian, not Latin, not Hebrew, nothing anyone has been able to identify.
Wow. Just completely unknown symbols.
Completely. And adding to the mystery, the codex is also filled with over 80 illustrations. These depict a really bizarre mix of scenes what appear to be scenes of everyday life, religious rituals, battles, but also symbolic imagery that seems to draw from various religious traditions. You see crosses, crescents, suns, maybe Christian, Muslim, perhaps even pagan elements all mixed together. It's very eclectic.
Which just raises a cascade of questions, doesn't it? Who on earth created this codex? What was the purpose of this utterly unknown script, and what message did its author or authors intend to convey?
Exactly. The theories abound, as you can imagine. Maybe it was a prayer book for some secret religious sect, a historical record of a lost ancient community, perhaps in Hungary or Romania, or maybe less romantically, could it be an elaborate, sophisticated 19th century hoax created specifically to puzzle scholars?
Has anyone managed to crack the code? I mean, we've deciphered hieroglyphs, linear B.
Despite countless attempts by linguists, cryptographers, historians, amateurs, using every analytical technique imaginable, statistical analysis, comparing symbol frequencies, looking for patterns, the Rohanat Codex has stubbornly resisted all efforts. No one has successfully translated it or even definitively identified the underlying language or structure. It remains a truly impenetrable linguistic enigma.
That's incredible.
It really is. So, in an age where we have successfully deciphered numerous ancient languages and complex writing systems, the Rohanat Codex stands as this compelling reminder that there are still corners of human history and communication that remain stubbornly, frustratingly out of our grasp. A complete mystery locked away in symbols we can't understand.
Let's turn our attention now from an unreadable book to some unreadable stones in a way. The hundreds of remarkably spherical stone balls scattered throughout Costa Rica.
Ah, las bolas. Yes, these are truly strange and captivating objects that have puzzled researchers for decades.
They were first brought to widespread attention back in the 1930s, wasn't it? During land clearing for banana plantations by the United Fruit Company?
That's right. Workers clearing the jungle just started finding these things, and they vary significantly in size. Some are as small as a volleyball. Others are enormous, over 2 meters in diameter, weighing up to 16 tons.
16 tons. And they're known for being almost perfectly round.
Remarkably so. Many exhibit a very high degree of sphericity, and they often have smoothly polished surfaces. And what's really impressive is that this was apparently achieved using stone tools only primarily from granodiorite, a hard, igneous rock. They didn't have metal tools suitable for this kind of work, nor the potter's wheel or any similar technology as far as we know.
And who made them? And when?
Archaeologists believe these spheres were created sometime between 600 AD and the 16th century, so spanning a long period, by the Diquis culture. This was a pre-Columbian society in Costa Rica that had vanished by the time the Spanish conquistadors arrived.
And what remains a significant puzzle is Well, why? Is there any record?
That's the core mystery. There's a complete absence of any known ancient written records or even definitive oral traditions explaining their creation, their purpose, or their meaning to the Dikis people. We're left to interpret the archaeological context.
So what are the theories then? People must have ideas.
Oh, plenty. Various theories suggest they might have served as symbols of social status or political power, maybe representations of celestial bodies or used in some kind of cosmological alignment, perhaps astronomical calendars or boundary markers between different territories or chiefdoms, or maybe objects of purely religious or ceremonial significance.
Have there been any recent clues?
Some more recent archaeological findings suggest that the spheres were often deliberately placed in alignments, sometimes forming lines or triangles, and often near the approaches to dwellings or plazas. This might support the idea they indicated the status or importance of the inhabitants of those dwellings, or marked significant communal spaces.
But many have been damaged or moved over the years.
Sadly, yes. Many were damaged by treasure hunters looking for gold inside, which they don't contain or moved from their original locations for use as garden ornaments or status symbols. Thankfully, there are now ongoing conservation efforts to protect these unique remnants of a lost civilization. They really stand as this powerful testament to the Dikis people's ingenuity and artistic skill.
Yeah, the sheer precision and scale of these spheres,
Right.
created by a culture without the technological advantages we often associate with such craftsmanship, it just poses these enduring questions about their methods, their beliefs, and the worldview of their creators. What message were they trying to convey with these perfect spheres?
A message locked in stone, much like the Kailasa temple we'll discuss later, perhaps. Now imagine a time, maybe 10,000 years ago, when the vast expanse of the North Sea wasn't water at all.
Right, it was land, connecting Britain to mainland Europe.
Exactly, a fertile inhabited landmass we now call Doggerland. And it's our next fascinating stop in this exploration of the lost and unexplained.
So Doggerland existed after the last ice age.
Yes, roughly from around 10,000 years ago as the ice retreated. It was apparently a rich environment, meadows, forests, rivers, marshes, likely teeming with wildlife, and home to Mesolithic hunter-gatherer societies. We sometimes call it Britain's Atlantis.
And its disappearance was gradual, then maybe sudden.
Primarily gradual due to the slow but relentless rise in sea levels as the ice caps melted. But the final inundation might have been accelerated, possibly by a catastrophic tsunami around 6200 BC, triggered by a massive submarine landslide off the coast of Norway called the Storegga Slide. This event would have devastated any remaining coastal populations.
So its disappearance serves as this dramatic reminder of the power of natural forces and maybe climate change.
Absolutely. It underscores the power of nature to reshape our world and highlights the inherent fragility of human habitation in coastal areas facing rising seas, a lesson that resonates very strongly today.
And there's even a controversial theory linking it to Plato's Atlantis.
There is, although it's largely dismissed by mainstream archaeology. Plato's description doesn't really match Doggerland geographically or chronologically, but the idea of a lost, drowned land naturally fuels such speculation.
But we do have actual physical evidence of Doggerland.
Yeah.
It's not just theory.
Oh yes, definitely. Fishermen trawling the North Sea have been pulling up evidence for decades: mammoth tusks, ancient tools made of flint and bone, harpoons, and even remarkably preserved human footprints and sections of submerged forests have been found on the seabed. Tangible evidence of this lost landscape and its inhabitants.
But finding actual settlements is hard.
Very hard. What's intriguing is that despite the growing evidence of its existence and clear signs of human activity, substantial traces of permanent settlements have remained elusive. It's a challenging environment for underwater archaeology. Researchers are using seismic surveys, analyzing sediment cores, and relying on finds by amateur fossil hunters and fishing crews to gradually piece together a more complete picture of Doggerland.
So the question remains, was Doggerland just a land bridge that people passed through, or did it develop into a more significant cultural region in its own right before your waters rose?
Exactly. Its submersion leaves us with many unanswered questions about the people who lived there and the lessons its disappearance holds for our own vulnerable coastal communities today.
Okay, our journey through ancient mysteries continues. Let's go back to Egypt, specifically to Aswan, where we encountered this massive cracked obelisk still attached to the bedrock of the quarry.
Ah, the unfinished obelisk. A truly silent monument to ambition and perhaps the limits of even the most powerful ancient civilizations.
This thing was intended to be truly colossal, wasn't it?
Absolutely huge. If completed, it would have stood over 41 meters tall. That's like a 13-story building, and weighed an estimated 1,200 tons. It was commissioned, it's believed, by the female pharaoh Hatshepsut over 3,500 years ago during the New Kingdom.
And the fact that it's unfinished actually tells us a lot.
It does. Invaluable insights. Because 3 of its sides were fully quarried and shaped before it was abandoned, it provides clear evidence of the sophisticated stone carving techniques the ancient Egyptians used.
How do they do it, working with granite that hard?
They used harder dolerite balls, weighing several kilograms each, to relentlessly pound and pulverize the granite, essentially crushing it away line by line. They also cut channels and inserted wooden wedges, which were then soaked with water. As the wood expanded, it exerted tremendous pressure, helping to crack the granite along desired lines.
Ingenious. And they found other evidence nearby.
Yes, the discovery of another, smaller, unfinished obelisk base nearby suggests that Aswan was indeed a major quarrying center, the source for many of the famous obelisks that adorn temples throughout Egypt.
So why was this giant one abandoned? What's the official reason?
The prevailing explanation, and the most obvious one when you look at it, is a massive flaw, a significant crack that appeared deep within the granite during the quarrying process. Such a crack would have rendered the obelisk structurally unsound and impossible to raise safely. A fatal flaw.
But are there other theories?
Yeah.
Or just unanswered questions?
Well, while the crack is the most likely reason, some debate lingers. Were there errors in the quarrying process itself that contributed to the crack? Was it purely a natural flaw discovered too late? Some more unconventional ideas even speculate about a sudden, perhaps catastrophic, event-halting work or link its unfinished state to deeper symbolism, maybe related to creation myths and the primordial Benben stone. But the crack seems the most straightforward answer.
Still, it's truly awe-inspiring just to contemplate how the ancient Egyptians even conceived of transporting such a massive monolith, assuming they could have finished it, hundreds of kilometers down the Nile to Karnak.
The logistics are staggering to consider. Barges, manpower, ramps. The unfinished obelisk stands as this powerful symbol of their incredible engineering aspirations and technical skill, but also perhaps a stark illustration of the inherent challenges and limitations they sometimes faced, even at the height of their power. Nature, in the form of flawed granite, had the final say.
Okay, let's travel now from Egypt to India and explore a structure that presents a different kind of engineering marvel. One that wasn't built from blocks, but painstakingly carved entirely from a single massive rock. The Khalesa Temple at Ellora.
Ah, Khalesa. It truly defies comprehension in many ways. Located within the remarkable Ellora cave complex in Maharashtra, the Khalesa Temple holds the distinction of being the largest monolithic stone structure on the entire planet.
Monolithic meaning carved from one single piece of rock.
Exactly. Unlike, say, the pyramids, which were constructed additively, block by block, this entire temple complex, courtyards, shrines, halls, sculptures was carved downwards, excavated directly from the top of a solid basalt cliff face.
That's just incredible. The scale must be immense.
It's absolutely vast, an immense structure featuring incredibly intricate carvings of Hindu deities, mythological scenes, elephants, lions, all emerging from the parent rock. It sits within this huge U-shaped courtyard also carved out of the cliff.
And the sheer amount of rock they had to remove.
That's one of the most staggering aspects. It's estimated that over 400,000 tons of rock were meticulously chipped away, and this was supposedly done using what would have been relatively simple hand tools, hammers, chisels, picks. The level of detail achieved in the carvings, like the famous relief depicting the demon king Ravana shaking Mount Kailasa, Shiva's abode, is just breathtaking given the method.
And when was this done? Who built it?
Traditional dating places its construction mainly in the 8th century AD, under the patronage of King Krishna III of the Rashtrakuta dynasty. There's a legend involving the king's queen making a vow and an architect promising to reveal the temple spire within a week by carving from the top down.
But some researchers question that traditional dating or the methods.
Yes, some have proposed alternative, potentially earlier, dates based on architectural styles or interpretations of untranslated inscriptions found at the site. And more fringe theories, as often happens with such marvels, suggest the involvement of lost advanced civilizations or unknown technologies, pointing to features like possible drill marks or the sheer precision and speed required.
Speed? How long did they think it took?
The traditional account suggests a remarkably short construction period, perhaps as little as 18 years, which, if accurate, implies an enormous, highly coordinated workforce and incredibly efficient techniques, raising questions for some about feasibility with just basic tools.
So what are the more mainstream explanations for the complexity and speed?
The theory of collaboration between highly skilled artisans drawn from different regions and dynasties has been suggested to explain the intricate detail and potentially speed up the work. However, the apparent absence of evidence for large-scale quarrying operations nearby, since the waste rock was presumably removed elsewhere, or sophisticated tools remains a bit of a puzzle for conventional explanations too.
And it survived attempts to destroy it.
Remarkably, yes. In the 17th century, the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, known for destroying Hindu temples, apparently ordered his men to demolish Kailasa. But after 3 years of effort, they barely managed to inflict minor damage. Its solid rock construction proved incredibly resilient.
Wow, so the Kailasa Temple really stands as this undeniable monument to human creativity, devotion, and engineering prowess. Or perhaps, as some speculate, something more that we don't yet fully understand. Its secrets remain locked in stone.
Beautifully put. Now, our exploration of ancient mysteries wouldn't be complete without considering something legendary, something perhaps lost forever. The Great Library of Alexandria, once the undisputed intellectual heart of the ancient world.
Ah, the library. Synonymous with lost knowledge. Founded in Alexandria, Egypt around the 3rd century BC, likely by Ptolemy I for fun.
Right. It was housed within or associated with the larger Mausan complex, a kind of research institute. And it was said to have housed an immense collection of papyrus scrolls. Estimates vary wildly, but possibly hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands, encompassing the accumulated knowledge of Greece, Egypt, the Near East.
And beyond. It was a vibrant hub of scholarship, attracting and supporting some of the greatest minds of antiquity people like Euclid, the father of geometry, Eratosthenes, who calculated the circumference of the earth, Archimedes, the brilliant inventor and mathematician. They all worked or studied there.
And what was particularly unique about the library was its deliberate, almost aggressive approach to collecting knowledge, wasn't it?
Absolutely. They aimed to acquire copies of all known books. There are stories, possibly exaggerated, that ships docking in Alexandria were required to surrender any manuscripts they carried so they could be copied for the library. They were building a universal repository of human thought.
Yet, despite its immense historical significance, we have no actual ruins of the library itself.
No substantial architectural remains have ever been definitively identified. Its exact location within Alexandria is debated, and the story of its destruction is far more complex and drawn out than often portrayed.
Right, it wasn't just one big fire, was it? That's kind of the popular myth.
That traditional narrative, often blaming Julius Caesar's fire in 48 BC or later destruction by Christians or Muslims, is now largely considered an oversimplification, even misleading by many historians. While those events may have damaged parts of the collections or associated buildings over time,
the real story is more about gradual decline.
Exactly.
Oh.
Modern historians point to a more gradual decline over several centuries. Factors likely included dwindling funding and support from the later weakening Ptolemaic dynasty, damage during various wars and civil unrest in Alexandria, shifting political and intellectual centers of gravity in the Roman world, and perhaps just the inherent fragility of papyrus scrolls over long periods without constant recopying and curation. It likely faded rather than burned in one go.
Still, it's a sobering thought, isn't it? To consider the vast amount of knowledge that may have been lost with the decline and eventual disappearance of the library.
Oh, absolutely. Works of literature, history, science, philosophy, known only from references in other surviving texts. Imagine the potential impact on the trajectory of scientific progress, for instance, if more Hellenistic science and mathematics had survived intact.
And some even speculate the library might have held knowledge from even earlier, now completely lost, civilizations, though that's probably pushing it.
That's highly speculative, yes. But the core loss is undeniable. While the full extent of what vanished will likely never be known, the story of the Library of Alexandria serves as this powerful, almost tragic reminder of the fragility of human knowledge and the enduring importance of its preservation and transmission.
And it leaves us with that lingering question, too. Were some of its invaluable contents indeed copied and safeguarded elsewhere, maybe hidden in monasteries, maybe taken to Constantinople, perhaps still awaiting rediscovery in some forgotten archive?
It's a tantalizing possibility, isn't it? The potential for lost ancient texts to resurface remains a dream for many scholars.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to some truly peculiar and enigmatic objects. The Roman dodecahedrons.
Ah, yes, these are fascinating little things. Small, hollow, 12-sided bronze or sometimes stone objects. They've been found across northwestern Europe, primarily in Gaul, Britain, Germania areas that were part of the Roman Empire.
But notably absent from Italy itself, from the heart of Rome.
Correct, which is interesting in itself. They have this very distinctive regular shape, a dodecahedron, so 12 flat pentagonal faces. Each face typically has a circular hole in the center, often of varying diameters, and there are small knobs, little studs, at each of the 20 vertices or corners.
And what's so baffling about them? Their purpose.
Exactly. Their purpose remains completely unknown. They show sophisticated craftsmanship, suggesting they weren't just crude toys. They're often found in contexts suggesting value, sometimes in coin hoards or buried with other valuable items. But no ancient Roman text, no inscription, no mosaic definitively describes their function or even mentions them.
So pure speculation then. What are the leading theories?
Well, numerous theories have been proposed over the years. Could they be religious or ritualistic objects, perhaps associated with Gallo-Roman cults or magical practices, maybe used for divination or prophecy? Some have been found in significant locations, like near temples or in a woman's burial, suggesting a ritual connection.
What about practical uses? Measuring devices.
That's another popular category of theories, maybe a measuring device for calibration, surveying land, or determining distances or angles. Perhaps used for determining the optimal sowing date for grain by observing sunlight angles through the holes. Or even a more recent idea, a tool for knitting gloves.
Knitting gloves? Really?
Yes, by stretching the fingers over the knobs. But the main problem with all the practical theories is the lack of standardization. The dodecahedrons vary considerably in size, and the diameters of the holes on the faces aren't consistent between objects. A standard measuring tool would need to be, well, standard.
And the complete silence in Roman records is very strange for something seemingly widespread in certain provinces.
It is. You'd expect someone like Pliny the Elder, who wrote about everything, to mention them if they had a common practical use. Their absence from the written record is one of the biggest puzzles.
So these sophisticatedly crafted objects, scattered across a specific region of the former Roman Empire, they just remain this tangible reminder of the many aspects of daily life, local customs, perhaps regional beliefs within the vast empire that have been lost to time. Their true purpose is an enduring secret the Romans took with them.
Precisely. Now let's shift back to written records, but ones that were dramatically rediscovered. Our journey into the ancient unexplained takes us next to the remarkable discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
One of the most significant archaeological finds of the 20th century, surely. Found accidentally, wasn't it? By a Bedouin shepherd in 1947.
That's the story. Near the ancient settlement of Qumran on the desolate northwest shore of the Dead Sea, he apparently threw a rock into a cave searching for a lost goat and had pottery shatter. Inside, he and others later found clay jars containing these ancient scrolls.
And this led to the discovery of scrolls in numerous caves in the area. And their age was just astonishing.
Truly revolutionary. Dating primarily from the 3rd century BC to the 1st century AD, these scrolls include the oldest known surviving copies of significant portions of the Hebrew Bible, predating previously known manuscripts by over 1,000 years in some cases.
Wow. And it wasn't just biblical texts, right?
Yeah.
What else did they find?
It's a diverse collection. Broadly, you can categorize them into 3 groups: biblical manuscripts, copies of books from the Hebrew Bible; apocryphal or pseudepigraphal writings, texts not included in the canonical Bible but known from the period; and crucially, sectarian writings.
Sectarian writings, like from a specific group.
Yes, these scrolls offer unprecedented insights into the beliefs, practices, and rules of a specific Jewish community living during the tumultuous Second Temple period. This group is widely believed by scholars to be the Essenes, a sect mentioned by ancient writers like Josephus and Pliny the Elder.
And there was that intriguing copper scroll, too, listing treasure.
Yes, the copper scroll. Unique because it's engraved on metal, not written on parchment or papyrus. And it doesn't contain religious texts, but rather a baffling list of 64 locations where staggering quantities of gold, silver, scrolls, and other treasures were supposedly hidden. None of this treasure has ever been definitively found, adding another layer of mystery.
So the prevailing scholarly view links the scrolls to the Essenes living at Qumran.
That's the dominant theory, yes. That the scrolls were part of their library, hidden away in the caves perhaps around the time of the first Jewish revolt against Rome in 6670 AD, when the Qumran settlement seems to have been destroyed or abandoned.
Are there alternative theories?
There are. Some argue the scrolls weren't specific to one sect, but represent a broader collection, perhaps from various temple or other libraries in Jerusalem, hidden away for safekeeping during the Roman invasion. The debate continues on the exact origins and nature of the community associated with the scrolls.
But their significance is undeniable in understanding the Bible and the period.
Immense. They provide invaluable textual evidence for the history and transmission of the Hebrew Bible, showing remarkable continuity in some texts, but also fascinating variations in others compared to later versions. They've revolutionized our understanding of Judaism in the period leading up to and concurrent with the emergence of Christianity.
And of course, there are always bolder theories, forbidden secrets, lost gospels, prophecies.
Those inevitably arise with such significant ancient texts, often fueled by the Copper Scroll or interpretations of some of the more esoteric sectarian writings, but mainstream scholarship focuses on their historical and textual value.
And why hide them in sealed jars? Just protection, secrecy.
Likely a combination: protection from the elements and discoveries, certainly. Perhaps secrecy if they contain teachings specific to a closed community. It could also relate to the Jewish practice of Geneza, the ritual storing or burying of worn-out sacred texts containing God's name, rather than destroying them. Placing them reverently in jars in caves might fit that practice.
So, the Dead Sea Scrolls, fragile documents that remarkably survived for 2 millennia in those desert caves, offering just invaluable insights into a pivotal time in religious history, still being studied, still revealing secrets.
Absolutely. A truly phenomenal discovery. Now finally, let's examine a more recent and perhaps surprisingly explicable mystery: the moving stones of Death Valley.
Ah, the sailing stones of Racetrack Playa. This is such a cool phenomenon. These rocks, some quite large, mysteriously moving across the flat, dry lake bed, leaving these long trails etched in the cracked mud.
And for decades, the puzzle was that no one had ever actually seen them move. People would find new tracks, see that stones had shifted position since their last visit, but the movement itself remained unseen, leading to all sorts of speculation.
Right, wind, ice, magnetic fields, pranksters, aliens.
All sorts of ideas were floated over the years. The tracks themselves are varied. Some are straight, some curve, some even make sharp turns. And individual stones can remain stationary for years, maybe even decades, before suddenly embarking on another apparent journey across the playa.
But this mystery was largely solved relatively recently, wasn't it? Through some patient scientific investigation.
It was, primarily through research conducted between 2011 and 2013 by a team led by Richard Norris and James Norris cousins, actually. They used GPS trackers embedded in some of the rocks and set up time-lapse cameras overlooking the playa. And they finally captured the stones in the act of moving.
So what was the mechanism? How do they move?
Their findings revealed that a very specific and somewhat rare combination of weather conditions is required. First, the playa needs to be covered by a shallow layer of water, maybe after winter rains. Then temperatures need to drop below freezing overnight, forming a thin layer of window pane ice, maybe just a few millimeters thick.
Okay, so water, then thin ice.
Right. Then, as the sun comes up in the morning, the ice begins to melt and break into large floating sheets or panes. And here's the key. Even a light breeze, maybe just 10-15 miles per hour, blowing across the playa can push these large ice sheets. And if rocks are frozen into these sheets or nudged by them, the ice acts like a sail, dragging the rocks across the slippery, muddy surface beneath the thin layer of water.
So the ice sheets push the rocks.
Exactly. The movement is slow, maybe only a few meters per minute, almost imperceptible in real time, which is why no one had really seen it happen clearly before the time-lapse footage. They documented stones traveling hundreds of feet in a single movement event this way.
So while the core mystery of how they move has largely been solved through this careful observation and scientific investigation, it's still a pretty amazing natural phenomenon.
Oh, absolutely. The seemingly improbable dance of these rocks across that desolate, vast landscape remains this captivating reminder of the subtle power of natural forces working together under very specific conditions.
Are there still any lingering questions?
A few nuances, perhaps. Like, why don't all the stones move simultaneously during an event? What determines the specific path of each rock? Do the very largest rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, move in precisely the same manner, or is there a size limit? But the fundamental mechanism seems clear now.
So, Racetrack Playa. Even when explained, it reminds us that nature can still surprise and fascinate us with phenomena that seem completely inexplicable until we patiently observe and understand the underlying physics and geology at play. A natural mystery, largely solved.
Exactly. But our final stop takes us back to Egypt and back to legendary, potentially lost structures, the lost labyrinth of Egypt.
Oh, this sounds intriguing. Described by ancient historians.
Most famously by Herodotus, the Greek historian, back in the 5th century BC. He visited Egypt and described a colossal structure at Hawara that he claimed surpassed even the pyramids in its wonder and complexity. He called it the labyrinth.
Surpassed the pyramids. That's a bold claim. What did he say it was like?
He described this enormous 2-level structure, 12 roofed courts, thousands of rooms, 1,500 underground, 1,500 above ground, apparently filled with intricate carvings and passages, colonnades. He said it was bewildering, almost impossible to navigate without a guide. Other ancient writers like Strabo and Pliny also mentioned it, sometimes claiming to have seen or explored parts of it.
So where is it supposed to be? And what was its purpose?
It was believed to be located in the Fayum Oasis region, near the pyramid of the 12th dynasty, Pharaoh Amenemhat III at Hawara. The Egyptian name for it seems to relate to being at the entrance of the lake. Its purpose was likely a vast mortuary complex associated with Amenemhat III, perhaps also serving as an administrative center or a symbolic gathering place for representatives from all the nomes or provinces of Egypt. Herodotus also mentions sacred crocodiles being kept and venerated there.
And the size, he reported.
Immense. Larger, potentially, than the great temple complexes of Karnak and Luxor combined, if Herodotus is to be believed. But for centuries, its physical existence was doubted. Many thought Herodotus might have exaggerated or confused it with other structures. The site at Hawara was known, but no labyrinth matching his description was obvious.
Until relatively recently.
Yeah.
There was a discovery.
Yes. This is where it gets very interesting again. In 2008, a team using ground-penetrating radar and geophysical surveys reported discovering evidence of a massive underground structure consistent in scale and complexity with Herodotus's description, lying beneath the sands near Amenemhat III's pyramid.
Wow. So they found it.
They reported finding evidence strongly suggesting its existence and location. However, and this is crucial, the results of this survey were apparently never formally published, and further investigation or excavation seems to have been blocked or restricted, reportedly due to national security concerns cited by Egyptian authorities at the time.
Blocked. So there's secrecy surrounding it.
A significant amount of secrecy and lack of official confirmation or follow-up, yes. This is only fueled speculation, of course. What might be inside? Was it designed to protect Amenemhat III's tomb and vast treasures? Does it hold secrets about ancient Egyptian knowledge or even connections to earlier civilizations, as some fringe theories propose?
But we also have to consider if Herodotus might have been prone to exaggeration.
That's always a factor with ancient historians. He might have embellished what he saw or heard, or relied on inaccurate information from his guides. The Fayum region has also changed significantly over millennia, with shifts in the lake levels and landscape. So reconstructing exactly what Herodotus saw is difficult.
So the Hawara labyrinth remains this tantalizing riddle. Ancient accounts describe something incredible. Modern geophysics seems to confirm something massive is underground, but official confirmation and permission for exploration are lacking.
Precisely. It remains an unsolved mystery, caught between ancient legend, tantalizing modern data, and perhaps bureaucratic or political hurdles. A potential wonder still hidden beneath the sand.
Wow. What an incredible journey that was. We've covered so much ground, from colossal untouched tombs in China to the vanished resting place of Genghis Khan, potential giants, baffling cave systems, impossible megaliths.
Enigmatic manuscripts like the Codex Gigas and Rohant Codex, revolutionary temples like Göbekli Tepe,
secret pyramids, mysterious sarcophagi, maps that challenge history, lost peoples, strange spheres,
drowned lands, unfinished monuments, monolithic temples, lost libraries, puzzling dodecahedrons,
miraculously preserved scrolls, sailing stones, and finally, a legendary lost labyrinth. It's just clear that the past holds this incredible wealth of secrets that continue to challenge and intrigue us.
Indeed. We've encountered countless fascinating details, haven't we? And so many thought-provoking questions. Each mystery offers this unique glimpse into the lives, the beliefs, the capabilities, and sometimes the limits of those who came before us.
It really makes you consider the limitations of our current understanding of history, doesn't it? And just how much more there might be out there still waiting to be discovered or understood.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a compelling final thought for you, our listener, to ponder.
Yeah.
What other incredible secrets, what other paradigm-shifting discoveries might still lie hidden, buried beneath the sands, submerged under the oceans, locked away in undeciphered texts, or perhaps just hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right questions to be asked or the right technology to be developed, waiting for their moment to reshape our understanding of the past and perhaps even our present all over again.
A profound thought. The Earth guards its stories well.
It does, and the pursuit of that knowledge, uncovering those stories, well, that's a never-ending adventure.